In Ireland, on any given day, an estimated 145,000 people on our streets, in our schools, in hospitals and in care homes suffer from malnourishment. Among those most at risk of not getting adequate nutrition are older people due to a variety of preventable factors. Now, joining me is a nutritionist, Gaye Godkin. You're very welcome to the programme.
Morning, Pat.
Now, first of all, we could look at malnutrition in children not getting proper breakfast and so on, but today we want to concentrate on the older cohort, people who are in hospital, perhaps in care, who might not have had to go into care if they'd had proper feeding.
Well, the biggest healthcare cost is the elderly. That is actually breaking the health budget. So if you're looking at somebody who's 3 months in hospital, that's going to cost, in relation to all other illnesses and diseases, far more. But also, I think the whole area of nutrition, it no longer conveys a simple message of energy in, energy out. So human nutrition...
Well, that works for the obesity equation, doesn't it? I mean, if you have too much in and not enough out, you're going to get very fat.
Well, I'm always more concerned about what's on the plate. People talk about portion control. I think what's on the plate, what are you eating, is far more important, particularly when it comes to nourishment. And human nutrition has a clinical intervention to play in risk reduction, in the prevention of malnutrition, and in disease treatment.
Now, you said to me during the break that you can be looking at someone who looks fit as a flea, looks to be healthy, but is malnourished. How could that be?
Well, what we're looking at is now with the confluence of the two epidemics, where you have somebody who's a weight issue, so maybe obesity, and yet they are sarcopenic. And
what does that mean?
Sarcopenic simply means that their body is in a state of inflammation. So sarcopenia is a smouldering inflammatory disease whereby it is affecting muscle health. And as we age, muscle is so important. It's very metabolically active. So if you have somebody who has muscle wastage, their metabolism is not working properly. So they're not getting their nutrients in, they're not metabolizing insulin properly, and their muscle starts to break down and they get into this inflammatory oxidative stress.
But is that dependent on the diet, that the muscle breaks down, or should they literally be doing some exercises, not necessarily in the gym, but for example, you could lift things, you could use isometric exercises, pushing against the wall, even using a table and trying to lift it when you know it can't be lifted, but you're still developing your muscles. Is that... would that do the job, or do you need building blocks?
Well, look, whether you're 8 or 80, you need to be active. That's a given. And it's interesting now because that cohort of 65 plus, they really need to be active every day to maintain muscle, because they're at the stage where muscle maintenance is hugely influential in health outcomes. But however, you do need to feed your muscle. So a lot of elderly people eat things like bread and marmalade, tea and toast. That's never going to feed muscle. Muscle needs protein. And when you're in this state of sarcopenia, muscle breaking down, which, by the way, all of us, once we get over 40, our muscle starts to be less efficient, starts to break down, then inflammation and oxidative stress do come in. So again, Pat, it comes back to the quality of food that people are eating, not quantity.
Okay, the quality of food, they need protein. I remember, I think it was Professor Paddy Wall was in, and he said, there's a huge industry in Ireland from whey for athletes,
yes,
the protein drinks and so on. He said, there's a huge potential for having drinks for the older person that would supply them with the protein that they need, that you talk about, to build muscle.
Well, this is it. Whey is whey is branch-chained amino acids, so it's very easy for the muscle to use it, absorb it, uptake insulin. That will hugely influence muscle. However, yes, there is a huge role for whey, depending on where the whey is coming from. These bodybuilders, fitness people, they're buying tubs of whey from China and they don't know what's in it. So again, it comes back to, so if you want to get whey into your diet, eat cottage cheese. Cheese is a wonderful thing for the elderly. And when you look and listen, I have a neighbour and he's on about 10 different medications per day, and he's afraid to eat an egg in case he gets cardiovascular disease, and he's 86. So that the old message that we sent out there saying that eggs were going to cause cardiovascular disease, don't eat fat. So these people are on low fat, no fat, toast, bread, and they're afraid to eat. They need to eat eggs are a wonderful source of protein. They need to eat things like lamb's liver. They need to eat meat at certain times. They need to eat fish. Now, a lot of the research around preventing the inflammation and the oxidative stress and the damage being done to muscle and metabolism is around carotenoids, believe it or not. So simply, eating loads of foods rich in carotenoids helps to...
Such as?
Such as carrots, such as greens, even things like lycopene from tomatoes. So any of the antioxidants, so like even carrot and coriander soup in the winter, soups, stews, casseroles. We don't even have to go, if you're looking at the small cohort of people who are malnourished, yes, they need supplementary intervention, but there's a big tsunami of people in Ireland who are heading towards 65, 75 that we need to prevent.
Okay, now, if you're living in a family environment, where lots of people are eating, generally you'll get, if people know how to cook and so on, reasonably well-balanced meals. There'll be veg and there'll be meat and there'll be potatoes and all of that, and there may be cheese for a sandwich or whatever, it'll be fine. However, when you're living alone,
that's
the challenge
difficulty
of providing you could get lazy. You could also, but also when you're shopping, you don't want to buy big amounts of stuff that'll go off, so you don't waste your money, and therefore you may not get that balanced diet.
And that's the issue. And I think that's the issue for people who are living alone. There's many reasons. They could have many health conditions, so they can be on what we call polypharmacy, loads of different drugs that are interfering with digestion. Your appetite goes down. They may not have the same smell as they used to have. They may not have the same taste. If they're arthritic, it's very difficult for them to cut up vegetables. They may have sight issues. They may be nervous about cooking. So that there again, there's another cohort that need addressing. But again, it comes back to the food choices. What are the food choices that these people are making? Some of the drinks that they're taking in is just glucose and fats. Okay, they're going to get some energy in that, but they're not getting in the nutrients, and that's where the malnutrition that we need to look at, the nutrients. If you look at any of the European studies, and there's lots of lovely European studies on this, and again it comes back to the Mediterranean diet, phytochemicals. Even if they were to use things like tins of tomatoes, it's all of those coloured fruits and vegetables that maintain the integrity of the muscle.
Jerry's been on from Monaghan. Eating good healthy food is very expensive. When I went on a healthy diet, my food bill went up by €60 a week.
I can't agree with Jerry on that. I have to say, I think that vegetables, if you go into any of the German shops, vegetables are relatively inexpensive. What I do think it is about, if they have family, is to batch cook for them. So there's nothing wrong with frozen food. If you can make up a soup or a stew or a casserole and, let it do for 2 or 3 days, or if you can have somebody to help you that can batch cook your food and you take out your small portion every day. And in the meantime, you're eating things like eggs are very inexpensive. Good quality cheese.
This text, the curse of refined carbs stalks the land. White bread, sugary tea, low protein, overboiled vegetables are all the staple diet in nursing homes. Inflammatory conditions are rife. Refined carbs are the killers, says Leanne.
Absolutely. And I spoke to a guy, came to see me quite recently, who'd just been released from hospital, and they were giving him sausage rolls for his dinner. They're full of trans fats. These people need healthy fatty acids. But
does HICWA not go in and to nursing homes and check, in addition to the checking whether patients are abused or residents are abused, do they not check the diet?
No, Pat, we live in a country, and I'm on record and I'm like a boring person. We have no national nutrition plan in Ireland, in a country where 8 out of 10 people end up in a hospital bed due to a diet or a lifestyle related condition. And even if we ever get our act together to get a national nutrition plan, it will have to be tailored for different age groups. So what a small 5-year-old eats is very different than an 80-year-old. I don't believe there are recommendations for nursing homes when it comes to specific malnutrition. We've only recently had a malnutrition assessment tool, and again that's looking at, when you're looking at somebody who you think might be malnourished, are they frail? Have they lost their appetite? Have they lost weight? But there can be many other underlying. You look at our epidemic of vitamin D. So all of the elderly are D deficient. We don't address that in Ireland, and that's nothing to do with weight.
Why is that? Do they not get out in the sunshine?
Well, we don't get it. So, we're 53 degrees north of the equator here. So, if you're looking at, today is okay, but most people don't put their arms. The World Health Organization says 20 minutes arm and leg exposure per day. Now, you may not put your toe out in some days. So, it's a very simple thing that we can do is to address.
But the messages are all mixed. You want to get your vitamin D, you roll up your sleeves and you're told you'll get a cancer on your arm,
And older people cannot metabolize vitamin D in the same way as younger people. So vitamin D is a kind of a steroid. So it needs kidney function and liver function to be working. And older people can't metabolize that. So in Ireland, one of our biggest issues is musculoskeletal problems such as osteoporosis. 1 in 2 Irish women over the age of 60 have osteoporosis, and that's vitamin D dependent. So if you're not, again, we need to look at prevention. There's no point in having a conversation where we have hospitals full, unfortunately, of old people who are malnourished, and they're there because they're malnourished.
And they're still being malnourished in hospital, are they, with junk food?
Absolutely. I mean, if you look at what the diets in hospital are, again, it comes back to the same thing. Doctors are not trained in nutrition, so their understanding of this is clinical management of diseases. And then again, if you're on 14 different pills, how do they interact with the food you're eating? Digestion is very difficult in the elderly. As we age, all of us, we lose our ability to digest, and that's why we become like babies almost.
All right, I have to disagree with the comment on fruit and veg being expensive. Buy seasonal in places like Aldi, very cheap. You can make soups with lentils and soup mixes, which will do for meals a couple of days, and they are so filling. It's a lack of education. No other excuse. That's from a Cork vegan. Vegetable soup is very easy to make.
It's very easy to make. I think the issue in Ireland is health literacy, and again nutrition literacy. We don't pay any attention to nutrition in Ireland. Doctors are not trained in nutrition. You go and you become a GP or you become a medic, and you have no understanding of the role of food has in disease prevention, risk and management.
Now, today marks the beginning of Positive Ageing Week, so how will you be informing people as to the state of their nutrition and how to improve it?
Well, on behalf of Age Action, sponsored by Bank of Ireland, I will be giving a talk in Whitefriars Street at 11 o'clock on Wednesday on this very subject, how to prevent malnutrition and healthy ageing. What we want to do is add quality to life and years, not quantity. There's no point living to be 90 if you're, banjaxed.
On that note, nutritionist Gaye Godkin, thank you very much for joining us. Now,